So one of the things that we're going to be doing with this class is working with MLA formatting. And I thought I would take a few minutes just to walk you through the basics. MLA is the formatting that we use for almost all humanities. For those of you in other disciplines, you may be using ALA or APA or Chicago. There are several different style guides, but for this class we're going to be using MLA. And the style guide to turn to is the Purdue OWL. And again, the link to that is on the syllabus. We're going to be talking today about the general MLA guidelines, the first page format, section headings, in-text citations, formatting quotations, and the works cited page. And everything that we're going to be talking about is up to date with the 2009 MLA Style 7th edition. It's possible to find older information. Anything before 2009 may not be correct. So make sure if you consult something other than the OWL that it's been updated. MLA, Modern Language Association, style formatting is again the style used for humanities disciplines. It's an academic style for writing, and it includes answers to almost every question, like whether or not you need to use the Oxford comma, which is the comma that follows the next to the last thing in a list before the word and for MLA you do, and for other styles sometimes you don't. Whether or not to put two spaces after a period when you are typing a paper, the answer is only if you're doing it on a typewriter. But for this class, we're mostly going to be concerned with questions of how to format academic papers. MLA regulates document format, in-text citations, and works cited. The most important use of MLA for you this semester is going to be to help make sure that you don't accidentally commit plagiarism. The number one rule for any formatting style is always follow your instructor's guidelines. In this class, we're going to be using MLA Light, which means that I'm going to comment on it when you deviate from the MLA style, and if you do it repeatedly and don't fix mistakes in your next papers, then I will probably start to take points off. But for now, you don't lose points for not knowing how to follow MLA style. That's one of the things we'll hopefully learn through the course of this class. An MLA paper should always be typed on white 8.5 by 11 paper. When you're doing something on the computer, that just means if you're turning in an MLA style paper to me, those should be the settings on Word. Double space everything, use 12-point Times New Roman. It says or similar font. Times New Roman is the best bet because they're actually very strict guidelines, and since I don't have the ability to provide you with a complete list for both Mac and PC, everybody has Times New Roman on their computer. Leave only one space after punctuation, set all margins to 1 inch on all sides, and indent the first line of paragraphs 1/2 inch. That's also the same as a single tab. An MLA style paper should have a header with page numbers located in the upper right-hand corner. Use italics for titles of books, magazines, and journals. And see, right there, I forgot to put the Oxford comma after magazines. Use quotation marks for titles of articles or essays. Place endnotes on a separate page before the works cited page. In this class, it's very unlikely that you will have endnotes, but just in case you do. The first page of an MLA style paper will have no title page, double space everything, list your instructor's name, list your name, your instructor's name, the course and date in the upper left-hand corner. Center the paper title using standard caps and no underlying italics, quote marks, or bold typeface. Create a header in the upper right-hand corner at 1/2 inch from the top and 1 inch from the right of the page with your last name and the page number. And that goes even on the first page. This is an example of what that should look like. Within the text, MLA uses parenthetical citations. In your personal essay, this is probably not going to be much of an issue unless you're citing somebody, but in your next two papers, it's going to be important to know how to use parenthetical citations. The format of parenthetical citations depends on the medium, print, web, DVD, etc. Parenthetical citations also depend on the source's entry in the works cited page. The signal word in the text is the first thing in the corresponding works cited entry. So if you have an author, it is that author's last name. If you have multiple authors, it is the first author's last name. If you don't have an author, and sometimes you won't, particularly for web sources, then the signal word is the first significant word in a title. So let's say that you had a title of an article that was something like the ugliest babies on the planet, then the signal word would be ugliest, since the is too vague a word for us to know which article you're referring to. Here's an in-text example, and it shows how sometimes you need to use the author's name and sometimes you only need to use the page number. If the author is identified in the text before the reference, all you need is the page number. If, on the other hand, you haven't just identified the author by name, it needs to go in the in-text citation. And note there's no comma between Wordsworth and 263 in that citation. Formatting long quotations. So anything that's over 3 lines long should be included as a block quote. And what you want for a block quote is basically everything indented 1 tab over, but you can do that by going to the paragraph and choosing that it indent 1/2 inch and then unchoosing it. You do that a little differently in Macs and in PCs. If anybody wants me to email them a walkthrough of how to do that, I would be happy to. An in-text example for adding words. Sometimes you have a quote and you need to clarify something by saying what somebody is referring to. You do that by using brackets to mark off the words you're including instead of parentheses. Sometimes you want to omit words. Sometimes the author has said more than you want. You do that with ellipses, which are essentially 3 periods after a word that signifies that you are skipping words within a sentence. Here's a sample works cited page. We're going to go over this more when we get to the next paper, but I just want to show you what one looks like. And here's the basic format for a works cited page. Last name of the author, first name, title of book, place of publication, publisher, year of publication, medium of publication. And here you see several examples. I'm getting my PhD in English, and I still sometimes have a hard time remembering what order and what to do and for what different mediums. You'll see it's different for an article in a magazine, an article in a scholarly journal, a web source. And so I want to suggest that the easiest way, I think, to build a good works cited page is to use one of the online citation builders. I prefer Son of Citation Machine because it is completely up to date and some of the others are not. So I suggest using the tools at www.citationmachine.net/MLA. Make sure you're using MLA because the site will also generate citations for other formats such as ALA and APA. So, but I recommend this. You may have at some point in your academic career been told that this could be considered cheating. In this class, this is not cheating. This is a useful tool. I don't think there's any value in your memorizing how to do a citation, and I encourage you to use it. If you need other help, or if you need to cite specific sources that we haven't gone over, or if you just want a refresher, remember that we are using the Purdue University Writing Lab, OWL, which is their guide to how to do this, as our style guide. You can buy an MLA style guide if you want one, but they're expensive and they don't contain any information that's not covered on the OWL, and the OWL is also easier to search than a hard textbook. So thank you for sitting through me. This is not the most exciting of the things that we're going to cover in this class, but it is important. And by the time we get to the next paper, being able to effectively cite sources and use MLA formatting will have an impact on your grade.